this is the only video that you need to start working with Redux toolkit. End of this video, 100% you're able to play with Redux toolkit. So first we are going to understand what is prop drilling, meaning to say what is the problem that Redux toolkit solve. After that, we go to the implementation. In implementation, we basically have 4 steps. Step 1, create a store. That was very easy. Step 2, wrap your provider. That is also very easy and only one time process. Third thing, we need to create slices. That third step is the main thing. There you need to put your like 80 to 90% of the effort. And the last step is how to access data and how to update data. That's it, done. After this 5 section or 5 portion, you can say you know Redux toolkit. So let's start it. Now let's understand why we need Redux toolkit. So Redux toolkit basically solve a problem called prop drilling. What is prop? You know what is prop, correct? So we have state and we have prop. State is just a data. Prop is a way to transfer data one component to another component, correct? So suppose this is our entire application. In our entire application, assume this app is this a component is the app.js. That thing is like, I can make it a little thin. Yeah. So this thing is the app.js. Okay, app.js. Fine. So in the app.js, we has a state called name. Correct. Now in the app.js, we has a state called name. Now the thing is, I want this data in this component. Correct. So I want, okay, so I have the app.js. App.js is rendering 2 component. Correct. Now from this 2 component, this component A also rendering this 2 component and component C also rendering this 2 component. And finally, the component G rendering the I. Correct. So basically, I can say roughly, this is the parent, this is the child, this is the grandchild, and that I is the great grandchild. Correct. So fine. Now the thing is, if the parent has some data and the great grandchild want to access the data, so we need to follow hierarchy. So we first, what we have to do, we have to send the name or send the props to component C. Correct. After that, component have the data, then component C is going to send the data to the component G, and then finally component G is going to give the data to the I. So now just assume that is your great grandfather. Your great grandfather want to give you some money. Now your great grandfather don't have the ability to give you the money directly. Your great grandfather going to give the money to your grandfather. Your great grandfather going to give the money to your grandfather. Then your grandfather going to give the money to your father, and then finally your father going to give the money to you. Getting it? So this problem is called prop drilling. What is the problem here? These 2 people unnecessarily getting bothered. Your father has the important work. Your grandfather has some important work. Your father has some important work. But still your father and grandfather get bothered by this thing. Getting it? So now the idea is, if in a React application I am using 2 component, meaning to say the load of the web page will be increased a little. Correct na? Because this 2 guy get into action. Getting it? So I know if you don't getting it, believe me, just rewatch this section, 100% you will get that. Fine. So now you understand, one guy have the data, another guy want the data. Unnecessary, some people get bothered by that. Correct. So now this problem is called prop drilling. Why it is called prop drilling? Because we have a property. We are keep on dealing the property until we have the expected guy. Correct. Now the idea behind Redux toolkit was, what Redux toolkit say, rather than drilling the data, what we can do, we can just create a center space. Okay, we can create a center space here. We can say this thing a shop. Okay, now under the shop, suppose that great grandfather have some data. The great grandfather says, I need the pen. Yeah. Now the great grandfather says, I want to give the name data to my great grandchild. What I'm going to do, I'm going to put the data under the store, and I'm going to say my great grandchild, whenever you need the data, you don't need to go to your father, grandfather, or me. You can just go to the store and you can pick the data. Getting it? So easy. So now, like that, without bothering your father and grandfather, you can have the data. Correct. So I hope now this thing is making sense. Now, if the great grandfather want to give you the name or some, sorry, mo money. Okay, you can understand this, right? This thing is the money. Now, if your great grandfather want to give you some name or some money, what you have to do, you don't need to, that your great grandfather don't need to pass the data to your grandfather, to your father, to you. You can your great grandfather put the data to the central store, and you can just pick the data from here. Getting it? So this idea is the Redux toolkit. Using Redux toolkit, we are going to create a shop, and this thing, by the way, called a shop. This thing, by the way, called a shop. Using Redux toolkit, we are going to build a shop, and now any component need the data, they can visit the shop and use it. Also, any component have some data, the component want to share the data, the component can put the data under the shop, and any other component need the data, they can just simply use it. Getting it? Now if you understand that much, that is very well. You understand the problem of the prop drilling, and also you understand how Redux toolkit solve the issue. Redux toolkit just create a shop. And also I want to say one thing, shop is nothing, just a object, as simple as that. Shop is just a object. Getting it? Under object has a name value, under object has a money value, like that. So shop is not something like complex, it's just an object. And fine, if you understand that much, you understand prop dealing. But I need to add little more. What that more thing is, suppose now this E have some data. Okay, this guy E has some data. Now E want to share the data to the B. Correct? Now if you know props, so you understand parent can give the data to the child, child cannot give the data to the parent. Giving the data in reverse order is not available on the Redux. Correct? So using Redux toolkit, we can solve that problem also. What E can do, E can just send the data to the store, and B can just pick the data from the store. Very simple. Correct? So fine, I think you understand what is prop deal and Redux toolkit. Now let's go to the installation and how to use Redux toolkit. So I already created a simple React app, and you can see that is nothing, just a simple React app. Now the thing is, before start learning the Redux toolkit, we need a playground, meaning to say we need a UI there we can implement Redux toolkit and learn. So in this video, we are going to build a simple counter app so that your concept will be clear about the Redux toolkit. Now to build a simple counter app, we need a UI of the counter, correct na? So you have two options. You can build the UI by yourself. And the second option is, I already built the UI and put the step in the readme.md file. You can just follow the step. And I'm going to follow this step only. So you can also follow this step. It will be good. So I give you the code. And after you get the code, you have this readme.md file. What you can do, open the file, and now you can click on this button. If you click this button, see the readme.md file now converted to this format. Okay. Okay, now what it says, create a counter.css file and paste all the code. So let's do that. To have the UI, we can create the counter.css, counter.css file, and I can just copy all the CSS code and paste under here. And again, if you want to, you can write your CSS by your own also. And the second step is copy all the code and paste under the app.js, correct? So I can just copy all the code, Control C, and where is my app.js here? and I don't need those files right now. And in the app.js, I can say control A, not here. I can say control A, cut, and I can paste. Fine. So I did nothing. I just create a count.css file, paste the CSS, and I also has a app under the app.js. I paste all the JavaScript. Actually, I paste all the JSX. Now, if I see the output, I have this UI. I have this counter UI. Obviously, it is not working because we are going to make this thing work. And here, if I want to just explain the code, nothing. I did nothing. I just import the CSS that we have here. And then I have a division. Under the division, we have a parent. The parent have one button that do the addition, a button that do the subtraction, and one paragraph that has a 0. Done. So I hope you follow along with me that much. From the next video, we are going to actually implementing Redux toolkit in our project. So far we're done with the UI. Now we had a playground to play with Redux toolkit. Now before moving on, remember in Redux toolkit, the main scene is we had a store. Whoever component want to share some data, that component put the data on the store, and whoever component want to access the data, that component fetch the data from the store. So for example, if want to share some data, so if going to put the data on the store, and D want to access the data, so D is going to fetch the data from the store. So one thing you understand, store is very important. Everyone who want to share data, he is going to use the store. Everyone who want to access data, that guy also going to use the store. So store is important. So right now, this session, we are going to create the store, and we are going to wrap our store with the index.js, so that every component should has the access of the store. If you don't get it, forgot everything. Just remember, we are going to do two things: create a store and wrap our store. Done. So now before creating a store, I just need to show you how the Redux toolkit documentation look like. So I can go to the Redux toolkit, and I can go to the first website, redux-toolkit.js.org. Now in website, that is the documentation, but honestly speaking, this documentation is not very nice, but this quick started, this portion is very nice. In this portion, we have a precise step. So before start using Redux toolkit, we need to install the Redux toolkit also, correct? So I request you came to this page and run this command. What this command will do? This command will install Redux toolkit on your project. So using this command, you are installing Redux.js toolkit and you're installing React Redux. So we need these two files to work with Redux toolkit. What I can do, I can stop my server and I can run the command so that my Redux toolkit will be installed on my project. Fine. After Redux toolkit is installed, what I'm going to do, I'm going to create a store. How I'm going to create a store? I'm going to use this command or this code, this piece of code. Now there is a good news that creating store and wrapping the store is a one-time process. Means you create a store and you are done. You wrap the store, you are done. You don't need to reopen the file and write some code. That is just a one-time process. If I came here, yeah, my Redux is installed. Now again, I can start the server and now I can create the store. What I can do to make the file more organized, I can create a folder of state. You can give it any name. You can give it any name. I can just create a folder called state. I'm going to write all my Redux code under the state folder. So under the state folder, I can create a shop.js file. Okay. Under the shop.js file, I want to create the store. How can I create a store? They give you the code. But still you are going to understand how it look like. Means how the code is actually working. I can just copy this line, correct? Okay, please allow me to copy this line because that is very headacheful having this line. So in this line, I am just importing the useConfig method. Done. Nothing else. Just like we import useState hook, we import useEffect hook. The same way I just import the config store hook. Not hook, we just import the config store method from the Redux. Now using the method, I'm going to create a store. How can I create a store? I'm going to create a variable of const. I can say shop is equal to, I can use the method config store, and this method take a object like that. And now under this object also I'm going to pass a reducer colon, and the value is an empty object. So this is done. Now this shop is our shop. We are done creating the shop. So easy, right? No, nothing difficult. And now the thing is, we also want to export the shop, because I am going to use the shop in the index.js. Don't worry if you don't get it forgot, just understand we need to export the shop. So I can just before say export like that and done. So now I'm creating a shop, and also I exported the shop. Done. We are done with the creating the shop. Now the thing is, if you came here, it say create a shop. Now also it say now import, okay, came to the index.js, import the provider, import the shop you created. Actually they say it store, but you can say it shop, and then wrap your app.js with the provider and pass shop as a props. Correct. Okay, wrap your app.js, wrap your app component with the provider and pass the shop as a props. So fine, you can do that. And another thing I'm going to do, I'm going to change the shop to store only. I'm going to just follow them blindly. Okay, fine. So now I'm going to come to the index.js file. Where is my index.js? Here. In the index.js file, what they say, import the provider. So I can just copy the provider. Sorry, I can just copy that line and I can import the provider. Also they say import the store. So I can just import the store also. And now the thing is, if you copy this line, it may give you error because the path is different for everyone. Correct. So I can just came here. I can import the store by typing, like by just typing. I can say import and str stored from where? From, for my case, from the root directory, I have a state folder. Under the state folder, I have a shop file. So from the shop, import the store. Done. Fine. And now what I'm going to do, I also imported the provider. I am going to use the provider here, provider here like that. And I'm going to wrap the app.js, or I can say I can just wrap the app component under the provider like that. Done. And now I need to pass this store as a props. So how can I do that? I can say store is equal to curly braces store, store, and done. We successfully created our store and we wrap our store to the app.js. Now all the components under the app.js has the access of the store. So done. We successfully complete the section 1. In the next section, you are going to learn how to use slices. Now the thing is, what is slice? Now in normal English, whatever you understand by a slice, that is the same thing we mean in Redux-toolkit also. Meaning to say, suppose you bought a pizza. Now you have two options. First option, you can eat the pizza without cutting the pizza. Meaning to say, without cutting the pizza, you can eat the entire pizza. Correct. Like that, you can definitely eat the pizza, but it will be like problematic. Second option you have, you can cut down the pizza and then eat the pizza slice by slice. Getting it? So the same situation we have in Redux-toolkit. Just assume you're building e-commerce application. Now in your e-commerce application, you have lots of data. Now you have two options. You can manage all the data at once. That will be problematic. Or you can cut down the data to slices. Meaning to say, in your e-commerce application, you have suppose user data, product data, cart data, orders data. Correct? Now you have this 4 major data. You have two options. Handle this 4 component at once. Second option you create a user slice. You create a product slice, order slice, like that. Now when you working on the product slice, you only handling the product data. You have nothing to do with the user data. You have nothing to do with the order data. So like that, you can make your application less complex. Getting it? So eating an entire pizza, it's not a good idea. eating the pizza slice by slice is a good idea. Like that you can actually enjoy the pizza. Same thing, handling the entire data is not a good idea. Handling the data slice by slice, slice by slice, make a application scalable and the user will have less headache because you can easily handle the data. So now I hope you're getting the point of the slices. Now slices is nothing, slices is just a portion there you handle a certain data. Now in slices you have only two major components. First, in slices you create an object. So you're handling suppose user data, so you create a user object. You handling order data, you create an order object. Fine. Now under the, suppose assume we are creating the user data. Now under the user object you have all the information, who is the user, what is the order thing, what is the cart thing, every information you have under the user object. Now the thing is, whenever you want to update the user object or you want to like play with the user object, that time we are not directly going to play with the user object. We are not going to say user.name is equal to and we are going to change the thing. We not supposed to do that. How we are going to do? Now in the second portion we have the second thing. We are going to create a method that help us to change the data. Meaning to say I have the user object, under that I have the name. I want to change the name. I am not going to directly change the name. I am going to create a method or a function. Using the function I'm going to change the name. Now whenever I have the requirement to change the name, I'm going to call the method, and using the method I'm going to change the name. I am never going to change the name directly. Fine. So you understand, in the slice we need to worry about only two things, the object and the method that change the object. Correct. And we are done. Getting it? So that is very easy. Believe me, in first time Redux toolkit look like difficult, but after a time when you actually play with this thing, it became very life saving. Because handling a big application using Redux toolkit, it's like reducing so much of the pain. Fine. So in Redux toolkit documentation, they says under the feature, under the counter, they create a counter slice. Under the counter slice, they create an object which is called initial state, and then they create a slice. Under a slice also you can see they pass a name, that is just a name. Okay, nothing else, just a name. They pass the initial slice, meaning to say they pass this object, and then they create a reducer object. Under the reducer they create method, increment method, decrement method, increment by amount method, like that. Under the method they write the logic to actually change the data. I know you don't get anything, but believe me, that is super easy. Just stay with me, you will get that. So now we also can do the same. Under the state I can create a counter ACLICE. I hope the spelling is correct. ACLICE counter slice.js. Fine. I create a counter slice.js. Now I want to create a slice. How can I create a slice? I can came here. To create a slice, I need the create slice method. I can just copy the method. Fine. I can just have the method, and I can just Control C and Control V. Yeah, I have the method. Now what I need, I'm going to create a variable using that. I can say const, I can say coun counter is ACLIC counter slice is equal to create slice, like that. So I hope still now you understand. I just import the method and I create a slice using this create slice method. There is only two lines, nothing else, nothing complexity is there. Correct na? Now under the method I'm going to pass a object. Fine. Now the object going to have three things: name, initial state and reducer. Name is just a name, we don't need to worry about this thing. Initial state is the thing there all the data will be stored. Remember we told you na, like we also learn that under a slice we have two major components, the object and methods that change the object. Correct? So initial data is that object that going to hold the data. So I can just quickly say the name. I can give the name to count coun counter. I can just give counter name. Fine. Now I need to give initial state. What I'm going to do, I'm going to create an initial state variable here. And you know what? I'm going to misspell the initial state variable. I can just go like that. And now they create a value. I can give it anything. I can just say const, they use const. Yeah, I can just say const, I can give the name is equal to, I can pass a object. Now under the object I can pass as many data I want. Suppose, just assume that I am creating a slice for authentication. Just assume, I'm not obviously, but just assume I'm creating a slice for authentication. So in this initial state, what information I want to store? So I want to store the name of the user, correct na? I want to store the name of the user. I can give anything. I want to store the ID of the user. I want to store suppose what, history of the user, and it can be array. So like that, whatever the data I pass under the initial state, basically I can use the data. Getting it? But for now I don't want that much. I just need a value, value, and I can give the value, default value 0. Getting it? So there I didn't do anything. I just created an initial state variable. Actually, sorry, I just create an initial state object. Under the object I pass one property, value, which was 0. Getting it? And now this is not mandatory. First I can give the value name to anything. Okay, that is not mandatory. Second thing, I can pass as many data I want. I can pass is login, is log, is login false. Like that I can pass as many data you want, because again you can understand this is just a simple object. Now here in the second argument I'm going to pass the initial state. Spelling is correct, spelling is matching, and you know what, I can just copy paste. I don't want to take risk. Fine, now done. Name is easy, you understand. We can pass any name. Second, we need to pass the initial state. What is initial state? Nothing, just an object. And in the third step we are going to pass reducers. We can came here, we can see they are passing a reducer. Under the reducer they are passing an object. Under the object they are passing methods, correct? What I can do, I can came here, I can say reducers is object. Under the object now I am going to create method that going to play with the value. Getting it? Fine. So suppose if I want to increment the value, how I'm going to increment the value? First I can create a method. I can say increment. I just create a method and I can make this thing as a fat arrow method, like that. Fine. So I think you understand. I have the reducer object. Under the object I just create a method, correct? Now under the method I have one thing. I have something called state. Spelling is wrong. S-T-A-T, state. Now the thing is, what is state? State is this initial state. Getting it? This state is this initial state. Means this entire thing is equal to this thing. Getting it? Don't get confused. This initial state is state. Done. Getting it? Fine. Now the thing is, I want to say whenever someone call the method, do one thing. Have the state dot under, see I say na, this state is this object. So under this object I have the value. So I can say state dot value. Getting it? So now state dot value is this thing. I can say state dot value is equal to, again I can say state dot value plus 1. What happened? State dot value 0 is equal to 0 plus 1. So whenever now someone call the function, this 0 is going to become 1. I can came here and they actually made this thing, but fine, we can have this syntax also, that is more meaningful. Fine. So I hope you're getting it. Now whenever I want to increase the value plus like with 1, I'm going to just call the function. This function going to target the state. What is state? This object is state. Under the object I'm targeting the value and I'm saying the value is equal to, like update the value to the value plus 1. So whenever I call the method, the initial value will be added with 1. Getting it? Fine. And the same thing I can create the decrement method, decrement. I can pass a fatter function like that, and I need to pass a comma here because I'm passing this thing is object also, and I can say state, and here I'm going to say that do the same thing. I can just copy, paste, and just I need to make this plus to minus. Done. So I have two method. One method do the increment, another method do the decrement, and we are done. Now if I came to the documentation, we are done. I understand documentation have another method, but right now we don't want to worry about this thing. Later on we are going to learn. In this course only you are going to learn this thing. Okay, but just I just request, just forget about this thing, that this increment by amount also there. Yep. So we have our two methods. So finally we had our object, and we had two methods that help us to play with the value of the object. Correct. Fine. Now what I need to do after it done creating the slice, I need to export the slice. First export I have to make. I need to export the entire slice, meaning to say this thing I need to export. So I can just export the thing, export the counter slice, and also I need to export two things. I need to export all the method I created. How can I export? I can say const one second, really const, I have to say export const, sorry, I have to say export const. I'm going to destructure. From where I'm going to destructure, I'm going to say counter slice dot actions. From counter slice dot action, counter slice dot action, I'm going to destructure these two things. What is action? Please don't get bothered by that. After this section I'm going to show what is action. If I show now what is action right now, you may got confused because I'm assuming I'm teaching a complete beginner. Fine. So from the counter slide dot action, I'm going to export increment, and also I want to export decrement. And if I can do a format document, it became look good. Fine. So you can see we didn't write much. Create a slice, create initial variable, import a slice, create an initial variable, then create a slice and also export the slice. Now under the create slice, you need to pass three arguments. One, the name. Second thing is the initial state, which was the object. Third thing, we pass a reducer. What is the reducer? Reducer is the object that contain methods, and that was reducer. Reducer is the object that contain method. Those method help us to update or modify or play with the initial state. As simple as that. Fine. So we export the method. Now the question is why you are exporting the methods, because whoever component, like I suppose there is A, B, C, D. I want to update the state from the D component. So from the D component, I import the increment method, and I'm going to call the increment method from the D component. So from the D component, I call the increment method, and the method update the state. Getting it? Easy, right? Fine. And now at the last, I need to export the reducer also. I need to also say export, not expect, export default counter slice dot reducer. This line, honestly speaking, you don't even want to understand this line. You can just blindly write the line. Okay, fine. So yeah, we are done with creating a slice. And now if you're able to follow that much, believe me, you are doing so damn good. We are almost done. We successfully set up the Redux toolkit. Now the situation is like you build a car. Now you just need to know how to drive a car. Correct? The same thing. We set up the Redux toolkit. Now we just need to know how to access this initial state anywhere in the application. I break down it more simply. Right now, see this zero. This zero is not a dynamic data. That is a static data. I can make the 0 to 10, anything I can make. And now the 0 is not actually a number. Correct? What I want to fetch this value in the app.js. Getting the problem statement, and what I can do now, I can make it data, so that when I change the data, you can actually see. Fine. So now the problem statement is I want this initial state under the app.js. That is my problem statement. How to do that? How can I access the value property under the app.js? It was very easy. But before that, there is also another step. The step was we successfully create our slice. Now we need to add our slice under the shop. Getting it? We create our slice. It's very totally fine. Now remember we create a remember we create a shop. Under the shop, I need to add my slice. Correct. How can I add my slice? It was super duper easy. I just need to import the slice. I need to say import counter reducer, reducer. I don't want error for the spelling, so I can just copy the spelling. I can just say counter reducer from from where / from the counter slice. Now the thing is, what is the counter reducer? If I came to my counter slice, I don't export any counter reducer here. What is the counter reducer? This thing is the counter reducer. Getting it? Remember we export this line counter slice.reducer. So this file is exporting the counter reducer and we are having the counter reducer here. Now what I need to do, I came under the reducer and now I'm going to pass my slice here. I'm going to say like counter and the counter will be counter reducer like that. And now remember this thing, this name is very important. Whenever I try to access this value, I have to use this name. Getting it? So this name could be anything, but whatever this name was, this name is very important. Fine. So we're done putting putting our reducer under the shop, and now I can just close the file. I no longer need the file. Now the real part. Now the part is I want to access this initial state under here. How can I do that? Before that, I need a hook. I need a useSelector hook. So what I can do, I can just copy this line and I can came here and I can just paste. And I don't need the dispatch. So fine. What I just did, I did nothing. I just import the useSelector hook. Getting it? I just import the useSelector hook from the React Redux. If you want, you can type the code also. You can just type this line. That is completely upon you. I prefer you can copy also. Fine. So the thing is, we import the useSelector hook. Using the hook, I'm going to access this data. How I can do that? I can came here. I can just create a const of data, or I can say count, any variable name I can give here, is equal to, now I'm going to use the useSelector like that. This useSelector take a fat arrow function. Okay, so understand this thing. I did nothing. I just import the useSelector hook. I create a variable. I call the useSelector hook under the variable, and the useSelector hook take a callback function. Correct? Fine. Now under the callback function, it take an argument of state. Okay. Now let's understand what is the state. This state, if you came to the shop.js, this state is this reducer. As simple as that. This state is an object and this state pointing to this reducer, meaning to say this reducer the state is this object. Getting it? Not difficult, right? This state is this object. That much of the code. Fine. Now under the state we have a counter. Under the counter we have actually the counter slice. So now what I'm going to do, first I don't need the curly braces. If I pass the curly braces, it give me error. If I say state like that, it giving me error. So you should not pass the curly braces. You have to write without the curly braces. You have to set state. I want to say from the state go to the counter. From the state go to the counter reducer. So I'm going to say state dot counter. Getting it? So state dot counter. You know what? I don't want error. I can just copy the thing. I can just copy. I can just paste here. So fine. So far you are like state dot counter, and whenever I say state dot counter, I get into this file. Okay, now whenever I get under the file, I get direct access of the initial state. Meaning to say, I can say state, under the state, go to the counter. Under the counter, now I can directly say value, 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 or again, I can just copy the thing. But I know the spelling of the value, but still. So I hope you're getting it. State dot counter dot value. Getting it? So it go to the state, then it go to the counter. Whenever you say dot counter, it go under the counter slice, and whenever it go under the counter slice, is automatically pick the initial state. Okay, so now we are saying dot value. I hope you understand. If you don't understand, please rewatch the video. I guarantee you that is a very important step and you will understand. Fine. So now I can assume under the count, I have this value. What I can do now, now the thing is very easy. I can came here, I can remove the data, and I can put the count, and done. If I came here, if I came to a website, no error, don't worry, there's just warning. I can just refresh and see I am having my 0. Now the thing is, where the 0 is coming? The 0 is coming from this place. If I make the 0 to 100, see here it became 100. Getting it? So now we can understand this. We can understand we are actually accessing the value in our app component. And now also there is another interesting thing. Suppose right now we are only are in the app.js. Suppose you have 10 components. From the 10 components, whenever you need the count data, just import the useState hook and just have the value. Done. So easy, correct? No need to do props, no need to use props. You can just directly fetch the data. So fine. So far we learned how to fetch the data. Now we are going to learn how to execute the method. What I want whenever someone click on the plus, I want to increment the data. And whenever someone click on the minus, the data should be get decremented. Correct? We already create the method under the reducers. In the counter slice under the reducers, we already create the method. Now you want to use the method. Correct? How can you use the method? We are exporting the method, right? We can just import the method. Correct? Easy. So I can just say import import curly braces from where you want to import. I want to import from dot slash from state slash counter slice. From state dot counter slice, import the increment and import the decrement. Done. We are importing the method. Now we just want to execute the method on click. Getting it? The thing is, we are exporting these two methods, and now we are imported the method in the app.js. Now whenever I am going to call the method, this method going to update the state, and now I can make this thing 0 only. Fine. So yeah, it was 0. What I'm going to do now, I'm all done. I'm going to use a, you know what, I can just make it in a single line. I can use a on click event. Under the on click event, I can say handle increment, and I need to create the method also, obviously. So I can just say const name is equal to, it is going to be a fatter function, like that, and done. And now I can just CLG, means I can just console.log to check the on click event is working or not, for extra security, obviously. If I say plus, yeah, on click event is working. What I just need to do, I just need to call the function. I can say whenever someone do on click, please call the increment method, and increment method going to increment the value. Correct? And now we are done. Now if I click, now the magical thing is I'm clicking the button but nothing happening. Why? Nothing happening because, and I can just refresh the page, and again I can click, nothing happening. Why nothing happening? Because you can't execute the method directly. That is not allowed in Redux-toolkit. Now the thing is, if I can't execute the method directly, how can I execute the method? To execute the method, you need another hook. You need a use dispatch hook. If you came to the documentation, see, we are using a use dispatch hook, and I am copying the thing because, you know, spelling issues. Fine. So also I'm importing the use dispatch hook and I'm going to create an instance for use dispatch hook. I can say const, const, and please don't give me suggestion right now. Dispatch dispatch is equal to use dispatch. Fine. We create an instance for use dispatch, and now I'm going to say dispatch. Please execute the increment, not this increment. Please execute the increment method. Now done. I think it is so damn easy. I just import the use. Okay, I just import the use dispatch, create an instance of the use dispatch of the name of dispatch, and now in the dispatch I'm saying dispatch please execute the increment method, and now done. If I came here, refresh, no error is there. If I click on the button, see, it is working. Correct. How it is working now? Whenever I click the button, this method got executed, and when this method got executed, this code executed. And what this code does, this code add the value with 1. Getting it? So easy, right? Now also you have to do the same for the decrement, but I just request you pause the video, try the decrement by yourself, and then we will continue. So I hope you pause the video, you try by yourself. If you're able to do that, very good, super awesome. Believe me, you are like more than like better than any other people. Meaning to say you're better than the average. You're doing so good. But if you don't able to do that, don't worry, you're just a normal person. Okay. How you can do that? Again, also very easy. I can say a on click. I can put a on click event. Under the on click event, I can say handle decrement, and it giving me error because I didn't create the function. I can just create the const on click decrement is equal to like that, and yeah, fine. So I create a on click of handle decrement. I create the method. Now I just need to call the dispatch. I have to say dispatch please execute the decrement method, like that, and done. Now we are all set. Now if I just refresh the page, I can do addition, I can do subtraction. Getting it? So easy, right? Now I hope you understand how the Redux toolkit work. This step is one. Only we have two important file. The file there you are actually using the data. The file, the slices there we actually write the data, or meaning to say write the logic. Fine. So I hope you understand Redux toolkit. If you don't get it, please rewatch the video. 100% you'll understand. Okay.